What's up, guys? This is Hot Noob here. This is episode number 3 of Hot Noob's IT Programming Crash Course from Noob to Voob. In this video, we're going to be going into HTML and get into a little bit of programming, or however you want to call it. HTML is not really programming, but it is basically the basis for a lot of things that you're going to be programming. HTML handles everything for your web browsers, for more or less in terms of the UI and whatnot, and it is a good place to start. If you do software development, or you're planning to go into software development, HTML is going to be very useful because a quick and dirty and really lazy way of doing things that is fairly common is to just plop in HTML or a web browser into your application and then use that for the interface. It's quite common, actually, or it's a lazy trick that I sometimes use. And the same thing applies to mobile apps. You just plop in a web browser and screw learning how to use the native apps or whatever. Honestly, it's like a waste of time to learn all these new things when you can just plop in a browser anyways. So a lot of applications and software is based as essentially a web browser anywho, saves a lot of time. Something you gotta know no matter what sort of programming industry you're getting into in terms of like front end or back end. You gotta know it to some degree. Okay, so I think in the last episode we got to setting up XAMPP, and we created a folder. So in this episode, I've already created an episode 03 folder, just some place to work, and our index.html file. So we'll be doing most of the work in the index.html file. So to get started, you're just going to create a less than sign and then a greater than sign, and in between is where you put your tags. So quite often you'll just start with HTML. And to close a tag, less than slash HTML, your tag name, and then you close the tag, like so. You don't even need to know what the signs are. So in between you have, I guess, stuff. So hello world, just to give you an example. Your content goes in between the tags. I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of something of this tag structure. And to continue on, let's see if it'll accept this. You can put in attributes such as style equals. So in this attribute, I'm going to put a little bit of CSS in. I'm just going to say background color. Let's see if it accepts it on the HTML tag. Yellow, for whatever reason. Okay, it does. So that's your basic sort of HTML tag structure, your HTML structure. Obviously, well, for those of you who have any experience, this is definitely not how you're going to be doing your page and whatnot. But this is just to give you a quick intro to how the markup language generally is. If you want to know what HTML stands for, you can Google it. Hypertext markup language. It is very similar to XML. It's essentially the same thing, just one is for browsers and one is for general data use. So quite often when you start an HTML document or file or whatever, you're going to put at the top docu-type HTML. This is not really necessary for a lot of browsers, but it is good practice because depending on what you set the docu-type or whatever, or what you put in the docu-type, can actually very slightly change how the browser handles your document. And just for consistency's sake, you might want to put that in, just for whatever reason. So docu-type, exclamation mark before the docu-type, and then let's get started with our basic web page layout. We're going to start by opening up the HTML tags, and within the HTML tags, we're going to put in the head tag. Now, the head tag is where we want to preload our page. So the first thing in our page that gets loaded is going to be from the head tag. Everything in HTML is more or less procedural, so we're loading our document from top to bottom. So in our head tag, this is really just because of tradition and organization to a degree. You don't actually need a head tag. You could get away with an HTML tag. You could also just put a body tag. But anyways, let's continue on. This is just your typical setup. You're going to put in your title, and we're going to call this My Web Page as our title. What do you think the title tag is going to do? The content in the title tag is going to set the name of our web page. So if I refresh, we get My Web Page as the title of our browser. In the old days, this would be like your window title. In the new days, it's just your tab title. Now, a lot of this might not make much sense because a lot of this is grandfathered in. These days, you can be messy. You don't have to follow this, but good practice, stick with your basic structure. After the head tag, you have your body tag, and this is where you put in your content. So, hello world. So, I'm going to refresh that. And here is our most basic HTML web page with hello world. Other things that go in the head tag are going to be your script tags. So this is where you would put JavaScript. Whoops, I'm missing a P there. Happens. And then your JavaScript code would be here like alert hello. So if I refresh, hello world, and you'll notice in the background we have no body yet because everything is done procedural. After we press OK, our body shows up. Just something to keep in mind. And theoretically, if I were to put this after the body, well, theoretically, doesn't quite do it. Obviously, there's optimizations put in the browser, so they typically do the scripts before everything else. Typically, but you cannot count on that. We'll get into that later. Other than script tags, you also put style sheets. Style sheets is CSS. What that stands for, you don't really need to know, but if you really want to know, just Google it. CSS should say cascading style sheets. Basically, it makes things pretty. So we'll go into that later, probably in the next video or so. For now, we're just going to keep things simple as an introduction. So, we have a blank web page at this point. I'm just going to get rid of this. So these are empty. We could just get rid of this for now, or unless you want to read that more. No, probably not. Okay. So now we are back to a blank web page, and you want to do something with your web page. Well, what are you going to add in? Where to start? You can be like, hello, this is my cool website. And refresh. Cool, we got some text document. Hooray. Let's make this do more stuff. If you ever posted on a forum with BB code, this is very similar. I don't need... Look, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I don't remember a lot of the tags, so let's do strike through HTML tag. Strike. Oh, it is strike these days. You don't have to memorize them. We have Google these days, but it does help. So, just to give you an idea, we now have our text has a strike through, so like as a Word document at this point. And, let's make this bold. The bold tag, to make something bold, is just put it in between the bold tags, the B tags. Lame. Let's emphasize this a little bit more. Let's put underline, which is actually U, I think. Ultra. There we go. Ultra Flame website. And I'm not sure if they still have the blink tag these days, or they might have Markup. The tags change all the time. They don't have blink. See, I don't even remember them. The tags change. I'm pretty sure they got rid of the Markup tag or whatever. So you'll ignore that. Old timers, you might know what I'm talking about. So a lot of what you do with HTML is a lot of trial and error, as you just saw right there, or Googling and whatnot. You don't have to memorize everything. I don't remember everything. However, you should know the basics. So I'm going to start with the basics here, which is creating a div tag. Now, div just stands for divider. And what that does is it puts everything in a little box. So I'm going to save that, refresh, and to help visualize this, I'm just going to open up the debugging tool, and this is with F2. And you can see with my mouse, this is something new. It does not exist when I learned how to do this, but this makes things a lot easier. And you can highlight over and you can see, oh, this is divider tag and whatnot. Now, why do we need the divider tag? Well, when we get to more advanced things and formatting, especially CSS, we might want to use a divider tag. In fact, everything these days is kind of just all divs and spans. It used to be a little different in the old days, so I'm just going to put another div here. Is another div, and it just creates a new line there. Now, an older way of creating new lines for websites is simply using the BR tag. So this stands for line break. This is a self-closing tag. You don't necessarily have to do this anymore. This is more older practice. The way you self-close a tag is instead of having BR and then slash BR, the IDE doesn't even like it very much anyways. So this would be the longhand way of writing this. Instead of doing that, you just do BR with the slash at the end, and this is what's called a self-closing tag. It's just one standalone tag. It's not a pair of tags. Just something to keep in mind. Anyway, sorry, new line here. Save, refresh, we have a new line there. Not very exciting at this point, I guess. So, as I said, HTML is a very old language, and a lot of things get depreciated over time and change. Like, it's an ever-changing language. Things are always changing. We have HTML5, and I'm not really going to be getting into HTML5. It's not really necessary. A lot of what you can do in HTML5, you can do in normal HTML or whatever. It's an extension of HTML, or HTML4, which is what we're using now. To use HTML5, you don't have to do anything different. You just need to use a newer browser. That's it. So if we're doing HTML5, it's identical to this, except we're using canvases and newer features. That's all it is, in case you ever get confused by that. Anyways, another new line here. So you don't need the self-closing tags these days, but I think it's good practice. It looks a little bit better to do self-closing tags just for tradition or history or whatever. Alright, so there are various ways to make new lines, and I've just done it in a bunch of different ways, and it's like, why would you do that? Like I said, it gets more evident when you start to get into style sheets or CSS, so I'm going to now add an attribute of style, and we're going to put some CSS, some cascading style sheets stuff in here, and we're just going to say font. They don't actually do font color. Sorry, this is one of these weird HTML things that you only really know from experience. You just do color to change the font color. And we're going to type in red. You could also do the color with hexadecimal. So hexadecimal here is going to be red, green, blue, and 2 digits. So red, FF0000 is just going to be flat out red. So full, like 255 red, 0 green, 0 blue. And say we want to add a little bit of blue. Let's do, I don't know, double A. And we get some nice pink. To give you an idea. You can also do this, sorry, we're getting into CSS here. RGB 2550 in case you don't want to do hexadecimal. Okay. We have our dividers down. Now, like I said, HTML is an old language and things kind of get out of date, especially with CSS becoming more, well, has gotten such more extravagant or whatever than the old days, and it's basically made a lot of what's in HTML kind of useless and obsolete. But you'll find there may be some lazy things you want to do, like say select this text. And we're just creating a span here, and the span is basically a small selection. It's like a divider tag, except it has no line break at the end of it. I should have probably mentioned that. So you see nothing's really changed visually when we put the span tag in. However, let's put in our style attribute here and say color blue. Now the word this is colored blue. We're just going to really speed through HTML here. Okay, without getting too complex, because we're almost at the point where you've learned all the HTML you really need to know, and it's actually quite sad, but that's really the points of HTML that we're at these days, which is you don't have to learn all that much, because it's all been made obsolete. Anywho, I'm going to show you a depreciated tag, and this is just to give you guys an idea of how to create something quick and dirty, and to give you more an idea of what HTML used to be, the older school, and how to do things or to create a layout. Anyways, this is an old school way of making a layout with the table tag, and we're just going to make a quick website layout. So I should start by explaining what the table tag is. We're making a table like in, say, Word or Excel or whatever, and we're now going to use the TR tag. The TR tag stands for table row, and obviously, in the table we have, rows and columns because we've all used Excel spreadsheet at some point or whatever, and we want to put in a column or so. So we have one column. And just to make things a little easier to visualize, I'm going to set here the style border 1px solid black. 1px stands for 1 pixel. Refresh, and we have one row, one column in our table. Say we want a second column. Just in case you guys don't know what I just did there, I just press Control D, which duplicates the line. I'm not sure if you have to set that up in VS Code or whatever, but that's how I have it set up. So let's make this easier for you to visualize, because I realize it's only showing you the border of the table and not the border of the cells. So we're just going to say table td. I'm doing this in CSS, border 1px solid black. I'll show you more of this in the next episode. Okay, this is just temporary. So let's say we want to create another row. Just going to duplicate that. Sorry, things are getting messy. In most IDEs, you can just select things, and Shift-Tab will bring it back, just in case your tabs are messed up. And then you can highlight things and press Tab, and this will save you a lot of time. And it'll shift things accordingly, as you've seen just now. So refresh, and we have 2 rows in yada yada. Hooray, we have a table, and that's basically all there is to tables. However, there are some tricks you can do for making a quick layout. So I'm going to change the first column here to nav, and then finally I'm going to create another one here called body. And I'm going to add an attribute here called style. We're going to say vertical alignment top. And you see we're already crossing over into the CSS. It's really hard not to do CSS when you're doing HTML. That's why it's all kind of like the same thing. Your web browsers, your HTML, your JavaScript, your CSS, it's all more or less the same beast, because you got to use it all if you want to make a website these days. So if I refresh this, we have our little something there. I'm going to go here and say add an attribute to our table and say width equals 100%. And we could also do this with CSS. We could just say add into our CSS width colon 100%. I should mention in CSS, I'm trying not to go too much into it, but CSS, your lines need to be ended with a semicolon. Not the best at explaining. And then we have our nav here and body there. Well, why did we just do that? Now let's put our content here. Hello world. So now we have a very basic, old 1990s web sort of formats or layouts. Just move things around. And then let's make this, I don't know, do something. So we're going to create the A tag. And the A tag is your link tag, however you want to say it. And we're going to give it an attribute of href. And href, however you want to say it, is basically your link. And we want it to go somewhere. Sorry. I've just lost power. We're just going to have this go to google.ca. And so, I guess I have no internet right now, but you get the idea. I've just, whoops. Uh-oh, what's this? We have no link here. Where'd it go? That's because we need to give it some text. So everything in between the A link is going to be our link. So clickable, everything inside of the ref. And it's giving me the default formatting. And of course, like I said, I got no internet right now because it just, I forgot to change something or flip a switch, you know what I mean. Anywho, there's some other behaviors quickly. You can say target equals underscore blank. And what this does is it opens it up in a new page. Like as you see right now, it just navigates when I refresh. Now it's target equals blank, and it'll open up in a new tag or new window. Something to keep in mind. So if you're making, say, a navigation menu, just gonna be lazy, br, put a break here, and we're going to call this, say, a local file, index.html. Oh, this is the file we have here, and then home. Refresh. This is now our home link, and it sent us to index.html, which was the same page that we were on already. I'm just going to create a new page here, stuff.html, just so you can see the navigation process. Duplicate stuff, and then just stuff. Actually, stuff. Here we are. Pretty sure I mentioned the lowercase already. Oh, what's this? It's on the same line. Let's give it a line break, new line. Stuff. This is very boring and seemingly tedious. Everything kind of starts from this. You have libraries and shortcuts and ways around this, but you still need to know this. You can go ahead and, get a website running really easily and quickly with, say, WordPress, the lazy way. But you'll find yourself getting very frustrated because there'll be, when you want to do something on a low level and say something WordPress or whatever, it'll be frustrating because you don't know where everything is on WordPress and you gotta have to learn WordPress, and let's just not go there. And we're doing the basics from the ground up here. This is a must know how to do things. Try not to do shortcuts, otherwise you'll end up as basically a bad programmer because you won't know your basics. You gotta know your basics. Okay, I'm setting the width here to 20%, and that is 20% of the table width, and then the table width is currently set to 100%, which is more or less the full page, and whatnot. I'm going to end it there, because I think this video is long enough, so anyhow, this is Hot Napier. Please subscribe.